So,
And I think we do start to know the effects of heavy lifting, and it tends to not be good. You look at a lot of these guys, a lot of, I always say that there's a lot of those go heavier, go home, hardos,
yeah,
who now
can't
are
do shit.
filled with regret in terms of
Yes.
they think, oh, wow, I shouldn't have said that. I wish if I'd known better, because now I've had a couple of spinal surgeries or whatever it is. And,
Yeah.
and all that hardo stuff that I said when I was 30 is coming back to bite me in the ass a little bit. And
Hey everyone, I'm your host, Anthony Renna. Welcome to episode 414 of the Strength Coach Podcast. We're talking about relevant topics with top coaches in the fitness industry to help you become a better coach, trainer, therapist, or business owner. Brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. Right now, the summits are finishing up in August at Providence, August 14th to the 16th. They just did Long Beach, similar to last year, where we have an opening Thursday. So 3 different business talks. Vince Gabriel will actually be one of those. Friday and Saturday, business as usual, lectures and practicals with last year's networking room that will be back. So you can go hang with any of the presenters that you want if you don't feel like going to a lecture or practical for that hour. It's actually something that I always do. I always kind of figure, like, there's so much information. I always kind of try to pick an hour and that I'm not going to do anything. But Coach Boyle will be there this year, so you can go say hi to him. As always, the social on Friday night, lots of new speakers, and they've been doing a lot of different things there too. If you're following Perform Better on social media, you know that they're giving away like a gift card for somebody who has the best Airdyne score, best air bike score. So lots of cool stuff that they've been doing. There's more of a buzz in the in between sessions right now. So you can check it all out at performbetter.com. I have Coach Boyle on today. We're going to talk about moving the needle with the general population. And that really comes from me asking him about his appearance on the Peter Attia podcast, which is not out yet, but he did that last week and I wanted to know how it went. And that got us into a discussion about general population and training the over 50 crowd. It's kind of good timing because we just had Jess Tolman on from MBSC and we were talking about, really adult fitness programming. So lots of good stuff on that conversation. And we finished it off with his reaction to a comment from the commissioner from the Western Hockey League in Canada about college hockey making players soft. So we'll get Coach Boyle's reaction to that one. Remember, we started a new segment a couple episodes ago in conjunction with the Business for Unicorns guys, Mark Fisher, Michael Keeler, Pete Dupuis, and Ben Picard. It's called the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play. Lots of great takeaways that Mark is going to start kind of giving you from those segments. And one thing you can do is check out businessforunicorns.com. They'll have a ton of free resources for you there. Highly recommend you go there and just check it all out. Today, Mark is going to talk about the only numbers that you really need to know. So when he goes on a consultation with a gym, which you guys can kind of obviously get from him if you do own a gym, he'll come in and ask you a ton of questions, but he's going to really focus on a certain amount of numbers that he really wants you to know. Then you can really gain a lot of understanding about how your business is doing by just tracking these handful of numbers. So lots of things to get to in this episode. Let's kick it off with Mark Fisher and the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play.
Welcome to the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play. In each segment, we give you one actionable tip, strategy, or tactic that you can use to build a fitness business and a life you love. And if you want more business building resources, you can find a ton of free resources at businessforunicorns.com, or you can also find us by clicking the link in the show notes. Now, today, I want to talk about the only numbers you need to track as a fitness business. In my experience, a lot of fitness businesses, in spite of the fact that you might understand as a fitness professional, it's important to have a program and track results over time. A lot of fitness businesses don't track a lot of numbers. And that means if they ask for my help, I'm not always really sure where to begin. Now, if I want to do a real deep dive on your business, for instance, if you hire me to do a half day or a mentorship day, I love an opportunity to do that. And I got to warn you, I'm going to ask you millions of questions. I'm going to be pulling in a lot of data because I want to understand the full picture. However, since most fitness businesses don't track any numbers, I think it's best to keep it simple. And the good news is the 80-20 rule is in play. You're going to get a lot of understanding about how your business is doing by really just tracking a handful of numbers that won't take you that long to pull together and don't require that complicated math. Now, I'm going to talk through the lens of a gym, but this will still apply if you're an independent trainer or if you're an online coach. So when I'm working with a gym owner, if I'm helping them just get started with a dead simple approach to tracking weekly numbers, I'm looking to track 6 numbers. I'm going to track how many leads they get in a given week, how many people expressed interest in possibly working with them, how many front-end offers did they sell or activate if it's a free front-end offer, because most gyms have something you want them to do before they go into your core offer or membership. 3, I want to understand how many sales opportunities did you have in a given week, right? How many chances do you have for someone to come in for whatever your version of that is, right? Sometimes it might just be a phone call. Sometimes they come in for 90 minutes to do a full assessment and mini workout with you, but there's usually some opportunity. And if not, I recommend it's worth considering. It's very hard to sell if you don't have some opportunity to help your prospect understand what it is they want, why they haven't gotten there, build value for your services and show them how you create those goals and overcome those obstacles, and then make an offer for the core thing, which for most fitness business is going to be some kind of recurring membership. So that leads to our 4th number we're going to track, which is how many new members did we sell in a given week. The 5th is the inverse. Sadly, everybody leaves on a long enough time scale. How many terminations did we have? How many people submitted their intent to end their membership? And then the 6th number is actually just a snapshot, which I recommend taking on Monday mornings, which is how many active clients do you have, right? That's a very important number to track on a weekly basis because that number alone is going to tell you a lot about what's going on with the business. So again, you have leads, front-end offers or trials, sold or activated, sales opportunities, new members, terminations, and active clients. Now, I would say briefly, it is also true that you probably want to track all of those numbers on a monthly basis, and you might also want to look at some financial numbers on a monthly basis. At a bare minimum, you want to look at how much revenue came in for the business, what were the expenses, and ideally, there's some left over profit, right? What is left over for profit, both as a dollar amount and a percentage of the total revenue that came in. Now, I've been doing this a long time, right? So I have a lot of numbers in the back of my head around the benchmarks you want to be looking for. It's a little hard to get into the context here because it just depends on what kind of fitness business you have. But I just want to make an offer to you. If it's helpful for you, we do offer free 10-minute brainstorm calls for anybody that just wants an outside eye to take a look at their business and understand if and how Business Unicorns might be able to help. So if you want to book one of those, you can go to go.businessunicorns.com/brainstorm, or you can click the link in the show notes. And as a reminder, if you want more help from Business Unicorns, even if you just want to access a ton of free business building resources, you want to go to businessunicorns.com, or you'll also find the link for that in the show notes below as well. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time for our next Fitness Business Power Play.
All right, guys, now it's time for the strengthcoach.com and NBSC.TV Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. Strengthcoach.com articles, videos, and one of the longest running forums in strength and conditioning and fitness. You can try it out for 7 days for free. Go to strengthcoach.com, start your free trial. NBSC.TV, you're a fly on the wall at NBSC. Staff meetings, programs, seminars, in-services from top coaches. You can try that out for 7 days for free at NBSC.TV. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing great, Anthony. How are you?
Good. I wasn't sure if you were going to accept my invitation because now that you've been on Peter Attia, or it was recorded, so we're still safe, everybody. But that episode's probably going to come out.
I am big time now, so you're going to have to work on, give me a little more advance notice for my book.
The requests are going to go way up now. Jesus. But Mike, how did that go, by the way? I love Peter.
Very enjoyable. I do too. And Gabrielle Lyon, we did a roundtable, so I got to do a roundtable with Gabrielle Lyon, Jeff Cavalier, who's Athlean X on YouTube. Jeff's got 14 million subscribers on YouTube, if you can imagine.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy. And you don't like him because he's a former Mets strength and conditioning coach. So.
I like Mike. If it's hockey, then I draw the line. The other sports, I could care less. I'm go Mets. If they're in the World Series, I'm like, go Mets. I don't care.
But he's a really good guy, and it was actually he was the one that had connected me and recommended me to do it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was 2 hours. I could have sat there for 2 more hours easily, just talking about training. It's really interesting because, and actually, I talked to a bunch of people at work about this today because they were asking me how it went also, and I think sometimes people, well, two things. Guys like Peter Attia and Gabrielle Lyon and even Andrew Huberman, they're really moving the needle in the fitness world by raising the level of awareness. People are way more aware of strength training and VO2 max and how those things are going to prolong life because of these types of podcasts, which is great. If you look at us, we're sort of nichey in the sense that we're talking to strength and conditioning coaches and personal trainers, and they're talking to every, general public. But what they don't see, and this is what we talked about, is that in the general public, we're trying to get somebody to exercise 2 hours a week. And I don't know if some of these influencers really realize that because they're so into exercise. So, Gabrielle, super fit and trains kind of like a bodybuilder, I would say. And Peter is like has been like an elite endurance athlete and a boxer and all these things. And he's, these are the guys talking about, oh, we need to do 6 hours of zone 2 a week and we train in 12 hours a week. And I said, in my world, we're trying to get somebody who has a job, has kids, commutes to give us 2 hours a week. And ideally 3. We're trying to bump our 2 day a week people up to 3 day a week. If I can get you to 3 days a week, I feel like I can make a huge difference in you. But it's 3 hours a week. And so I think they were a little surprised when I said that because it's like now you're sitting down with, and I described myself to them. I'm just a coach. I'm a practitioner. I'm not a super smart science guy like them, but I do understand this process of trying to get sort of Mr. or Mrs. John Q. Public or Jane Q. Public to try to get in the gym and do a basic exercise program.
Yeah. And look, the one thing probably Jeff has the most personal experience with people. Maybe not for a while because as he grew his YouTube channel. But one good thing about Jeff is he's always talking about injuries, how to help with that, lots of little things. I think with Dr. Gabrielle and then Peter Attia, they're more on the other side of it. Maybe they see patients, but not nowhere near the clients, as we had Jess Tolman on last episode talking about 335 adult clients just in your 2 locations. That's not even scratching the surface of the amount of people that you're reaching from that perspective. But that's the main point you're trying to get across here.
And as I said, of those 335, probably 275 of them are 2 day a week people. And so that's, one of our big pushes is just add a third day, get in here one more time, and that's why I kind of, gave Gabrielle a little bit of a pat on the back. I said, because her idea of 75 hard minutes a week of cardio, that's achievable. But a lot of the other guidelines that you get, 150 minutes a week or, 2 hours of zone 2, like you look at this and think, you need to be, Steve Bigelow was saying that today. You need to be like a .com guy who sold his company, and all he's got to do is work out. Because we were talking about it, and they said, what do you think the big obstacle is? And I said, time and money. I said it costs money to train, and you got to have time. And if you take the average parent, which is who we're dealing with, who has a job where they work 8 hours a day, and then if you're living in Boston, you could be commuting 2 hours a day. If you're living in New York, nothing to commute 2 hours a day, right? So now you're talking about someone, you're in for 10 hours right off the bat. And then you think, do I have a family? Do I have kids that I have to get back and forth to sports or music or whatever that is? And you think, wow, like for somebody, if you want to be involved in an exercise program, you might have to be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's not all that realistic for most people. So I think that's where we're very much in the, hey, let's meet people where they're at stage. We have now we have lunchtime groups and we have morning groups and we have evening groups and people can sign up whenever they want. We're trying to make it really conducive. And then we're trying to get the programming and think, okay, let's address flexibility. Let's address soft tissue work. Let's address conditioning. Let's address strength in it like a safe way. This isn't, you hear people talk about, oh, I'm in the gym for 2 hours. Again, who the hell's got 2 hours to be in a gym? You better not have a job or a wife or a kid. And so I just don't think people realize how time crunched the world is, and the fact that exercise can be difficult and expensive. And again, as an adult, what do? Right? We prioritize our kids. That was one of the things when I remember the first 2008, the first economic downturn. I read an article, and one of the guys said that if you're in any youth sort of facing industry, you were going to be recession proof, because the last thing parents would cut back on would be their kids.
Sure. Yep.
They'd cut all kinds of stuff before they started cutting out their kids' activities. And I remember that because at that time we were much more youth oriented. We were probably pulling in the reverse of where we are now, probably pulling in 75% of our revenue from kids. And I thought, that's good. We're not really going to get affected by this downturn because people aren't going to cut back. And we didn't. It ended up where we never had any decline in business. And whoever wrote the article was 100% right in terms of it may have hurt our adult training business, but it wasn't going to hurt our youth training business.
Yeah, you're right about that too with the schedules. I'll give you an example. My wife's a home worker, but she is working all day, right? She walks the dog in the morning. She walks the dog in the, kind of midday. We walk the dog in the evening. That's kind of her steps. So she's getting a lot of steps. She works out 3 times a week at a place, Metabolic, 6:30 a.m. But sometimes people will say, well, you could do your stretching, in the evening at 7 or 8 o'clock, you're watching TV. My wife's exhausted, and to say like that's kind of a piece for them or that person, like, oh, we're watching too much TV. I get it. I really personally don't watch a lot of TV, but she'll go inside and watch TV. That's her kind of stress relief. She just wants to put on some brainless shows and like just chill because she's been dealing with bullshit all day. So it's when you don't work with people, it's easy to say, get those 150, when you don't have all these different situations that you're
Right.
people are throwing at you, I'm with you because out of all my clients, I have like just a few that are doing 3 days a week.
Yeah. I
It's
mean, I
hard.
said, I don't think people, that's why I think I'm going to go on Gabrielle's podcast too. We had talked about it, but she also films on location in Houston. And I thought, oh my God, I don't really want to do another one of these. I thought the Attia one was a really good opportunity. So I thought, hey, I'll go to Austin and I'll record. But you do realize, because I had said to her, she's smart, and I had said to her, you guys are really moving the needle here in terms of I'm talking to people who know who you are and are listening to what you're saying in our general fitness kind of world. And she sent me back a text. She said, you got to help us move the needle. And I thought, that's a pretty good pitch, because it's sort of that, well, if not you, who, right? If I'm not going to do it, then some knucklehead's probably going to do it who doesn't know what he's talking about. And that doesn't help either, because as you said, you really need people out there that are working with people that are actually in it. And I'm still in it. I'm looking at it every day and I'm thinking, okay, how are we impacting these normal people? They're not athletes. They don't do it for a living. That's actually my talk for Perform Better. I'm looking forward to it because I've had some really good ideas in terms of program design for personal trainers, but you start realizing that there's one of my favorite memes is the one, and I put it in the presentation. The number one cause of injury in old men is thinking that they're young men, right? And you don't. It's so easy to say stupid shit and not. Again, people aren't training heavy enough, and I started to think about like, well, are we really talking about heavy or are we talking about challenging? I think you need to train in a way that's challenging, but grandma doesn't need to deadlift. Do you know what I mean? Like we've got to be able to look at like what's constituting heavy versus challenging. I want challenging. I want somebody getting near failure. I want someone lifting weights that makes them work hard, but you've got to be super realistic about what that is, for that given person at that given time. And I think that's where, again, like the meathead powerlifter, the guy who can bench press 400 pounds has trouble looking and thinking that, well, 95 actually is hard for that guy. Like it's not heavy, but it is challenging. At least you might not look at it and think, that's not heavy. It's not even 100 pounds. But if he's failing at 9, it's heavy enough. And really what you got to worry about is heavy enough versus somebody's kind of exterior perception of what might constitute heavy.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times too is when the information, there's not a lot of us that are a little bit older. Right. And that's an important piece because, all right, I'm 58 and I could do a lot of stuff people can't do. Right. And now I'm a trainer, I work in the gym, blah, blah, blah. But I'm playing hockey and these people are like, they can't believe I'm 58, right? Because I'm faster than a lot of these kids. And that's a lot of technique or whatever. But also I'm in good shape. So everybody's younger than me that I'm playing with. And I do tell them like, look, you don't understand. Like even with the league, I'm like, I don't want to play in a league right now. That's where in the second period and third period, it's not gonna be that fun for me because that's when the younger guys are going to be like, I can hang in the first period, but I don't think they understand the effect. And I'll be honest, Mike, I didn't understand it either until a couple of years ago when I went to work at Lifetime and I'd do like 6-hour shift on my feet. And I'm exhausted. I'm only doing it 3 days a week. I was like 20 years ago, I was doing this backwards, like walking around. I mean, I could do it in my sleep. I was at Equinox all day and doing other things, continuing education.
Think about the bar business, working doubles.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we used to work, we'd work doubles all the time. Work day shift, night shift, stay there 12 hours, 14 hours at a stretch.
Yeah.
And then go out drinking afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny because that's why I think a lot of the information is not coming from people who are older and are doing these things. And really, I can see the effect of what a hockey will do for me on a Tuesday night that I'm playing tonight. And then tomorrow, I'm like, tomorrow needs to be a rest day because I do need to recover from that. And I'll work out Thursday. And so there's different, maneuver. You have to maneuver a little bit differently now.
I said that to Peter Attia. I said, because it's really interesting for me. So here I'm a panelist, but I'm also the target audience in a lot of ways because I am somebody, and I said this, I am someone who's experiencing the decline of age. And people are like, oh, you look unbelievable. Same thing, you're in great shape for your age. And I'm like, I know I am, but I can't. Like, I got to do a thing, lacrosse thing at Springfield College in a couple of weeks, and I'm bringing Mark with me to demonstrate because I cannot demonstrate anymore. I am not physically capable. If I said, okay, I've got to do 2 sessions for 15 to 17-year-olds, I'm not demonstrating plyos and chin ups, and I mean, I physically can't do it. 8, 10 years ago, I could. 10 years ago, I would have gone up there and said, I could set up. I might be hurting the next day, but I could do it. Now I can't do it. And you do not understand age-related decline if you have not gone through age-related decline. and that's why I always, whenever people, I go, like, obviously you see me on Twitter, I go crazy on Twitter sometimes because people, when some 40-year-old guy starts telling 60-year-old guys how to work out, I'm like, please don't. Like, you honestly, you can't tell a 60-year-old how to work out if you're not 60, or at least if you're not talking to 60-year-olds, because when people say, oh, age is just a number, I'm like, no, it's not a fucking number, let me tell you. And when it's a high number, it's exactly what it is. And yes, and even I say, when we were talking about with Peter as we were leaving, he talks about his centenarian Olympics and all that stuff. We want to fight like hell against a decline, but we are all going to lose. Everybody. It is the way that it is. It is inevitable. There is no one that has lived forever. There is no one who you look at and think, oh my God, look at that guy. He's 100. He looks like he's 40.
Yeah.
Never. Like, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And there'll always be people who they think, oh, wow, he looks really good. They're like, I look good for 65. And I move really good for 65. I'm in really good cardiovascular shape for 65, but there are parts of my body that are absolutely 65. And when I get up in the morning, I know what all of them are. So it's interesting. So I guess that's why it's good to stay in it, because even now I'm very representative of the demographic that we're going hard after.
Yeah, you made a good point about at least having those 60, 65. I have a bunch of 70-year-olds because you and I are 7 years apart, but exponentially, that's a big 7 years. I don't know what you're going. I'm going like, oh, Mike, I know what you mean. I don't really know what you mean. I really don't, because I'm feeling like, oh, I could do that. A pull up, big deal. I can do 5 pull ups at a time. I do a bunch of sets of that, but I don't know what it means to be 65 because the older you get, now exponentially, it's becoming harder and harder, like over the last few years, right?
Right. And it's real. I mean, people that,
Yeah.
and that's what it kind of makes me giggle, because I look at people and think, I don't understand how we can be arguing about this.
Yeah.
Right? Seriously, like, how can we be arguing about this? Because you don't have any, if you're 40 years old, you have no basis for the argument. Because it's kind of, whatever, you talk to someone who's been through whatever, some negative life experience, and you say, I know how you feel. And sometimes someone will get angry with you and say, no, you don't, right?
Yeah.
You don't know how I feel because you haven't been through the life experience that I've been through. And that's the reality. As I said, aging is real. And anybody, it's like, go to a nursing home and you'll see, like, okay, people get old.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I can work like, oh, you got to eat better, you got to work out harder. I'm like, yeah, I can do all that stuff, but I'm not going to halt the aging process. I'm not going to be like, I'm done at 50, right? I'm
Yeah.
not aging beyond 50. And the only way to do that is to die at 50.
Yeah.
Because 51 is going to feel different. And they said it, we were talking about, actually, Jeff Cavalier had become friendly with Sylvester Stallone. And they were talking, and Stallone said to him, the biggest decline for me was between 50 and 65. That's why I tweeted out the other day about that, in terms of, I think 50 is where you really have to think, I got to get going. I got to get started exercising, because you've probably still got some good gas in the tank at 50, and you can probably really make some changes. You wait till you're 65, you're going to be in trouble, because orthopedically at that point, that's why I always joke with people. It's kind of, the standard joke when you meet another 65-year-old is, all original parts, right?
Yeah.
And some people will be
Yeah.
like, yeah, all original parts. And other people will be like, oh, 2 knee replacements, 1 hip, oh, got a, fake disc, whatever.
Yeah.
Because you start to get to that point where the doctor starts replacing the parts that wore out. And then you get people, oh, the parts don't wear out. If you just keep working out, stuff won't wear out. And
Yeah.
how do you know that? I mean, you can't say that if you're 40.
Also, this is so new. Like, fitness is it's so young. Like, we don't really know the effects of all this heavy lifting. And we haven't done, you know what I mean? Like, this is really a brand new thing. So,
And I think we do start to know the effects of heavy lifting, and it tends to not be good. You look at a lot of these guys, a lot of, I always say that there's a lot of those go heavy or go home hardos
yeah,
who now are
can't do shit.
filled with regret, in terms of
Yes.
they think, oh, wow, I shouldn't have said that. I wish if I'd known better, because now I've had a couple of spinal surgeries or whatever it is. And,
Yeah.
and all that hardo stuff that I said when I was 30 is coming back to bite me in the ass a little bit. And that's the part. And I always think that's what I have that other people don't have. I have 43 years of experience in the field, and I've seen a lot of things in 43 years. And one of the things that I've seen is just my own unavoidable physical decline. And I tell you that I tried to run. Like, I can't run anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
as I always said, I could get out of the way of the bus. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not going to get killed
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the car.
Mhm.
But if you said, mile run for $1 million, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, Jesus, how bad do I really need $1 million?
Yeah.
And do I have to, can I stop and walk at some point? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and some people be like, come on, you got to be able to do that. And I'm like, maybe for $1 million, I might be able to do it, but
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah. 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 It's funny. Coach, let's switch topics here. This is, we were kind of talking about last time with the Achilles stuff. So I think it's relatable. The one of the Western Hockey League commissioner, Dan Neer, said that the NCAA is business class, but cautions that playing a Friday, Saturday schedule and then pumping iron and drinking smoothies all week, this is the most ridiculous comment, will make you soft and ill-prepared for professional hockey, as chartered flights or an otherwise well-resourced hockey program deny you the character-building opportunities of 12-hour bus trips through Saskatchewan in January. And this is in the wake of 26 kids leaving the WHL, going to college programs now, because that was a new thing that was enacted and label. And I think this reminded me exactly of what you were talking about last episode with the Achilles, the one and done guys versus the guys who played 4 years. I was talking about with Dante last night about, hey, do you think this kid Schaefer is going to play for the Islanders? Or because I kind of, obviously I'm an Islander fan, so I want him to go. But at the same time, I'm like, he needs to get bigger and stronger. He's going to be playing with men now. The kid's 17 going on 18. I want him to develop mentally, emotionally, although he's very mature, but mentally, emotionally, physically. Just talk to us about this. To me, was like the same thing. And I think it was a ridiculous. By the way, everybody, Cale Makar went to UMass, played 4 years. He's like unbelievable. He had no problem stepping into the NHL.
I think he played 3 actually, but
3, yeah, okay, yeah, right.
but I honestly, that guy was like he did an ad for college hockey. Somebody saw on Twitter,
yes,
on my feeds, they said College Hockey Inc., which is a company that has grown to nonprofit basically that promotes college hockey, said they should be sending this guy money. They should be sending him residuals because he's 100% wrong, but it's the only pitch he has left. So I think and maybe he believes it, or maybe he thinks it's the only pitch I have left. Because there is no question, if you look, and I've said this before, I said this in a bunch of my hockey presentations over the years, the number of guys coming out of 40-game seasons, if you think the NHL used to be about 90% major junior A Canadian players, it's now down under 50%. So they've lost half of their market share. And that market share has been lost to European players and college players. So both of those groups have short seasons in common. And so the mini NHL preparation thing has seen its market share fall by 50%. And I always likened it in my presentation. It would be like, the guy from Pepsi getting up there and saying, yeah, we've lost 50% of our market share to Coke, but it's okay. We're going to keep doing the same marketing that we've always been doing. And you look at it and think, yeah, but you lost 50% of your market share. Why are you going to do that? Now they're losing their top end because NAL is allowing these kids to get some NHL level money to go play college hockey.
Mm-hmm.
The coaching is better. The facilities are better. The travel is better. Everything is better. It's just a way better minor league. You have to play half the games. You get an incredibly well-qualified strength coach. I mean, you look at Michigan's
the meals.
Yeah, meals. I mean, it's not even, there's no comparison at all. So I think the last ditch effort is that piece that he did. You won't have the toughness to make it. And you think, if you're 5'11", 160 and you've got the toughness, I don't know if that's great, or if you get done with 4 years of college and you're 5'11", 190, I think you got a better chance of making the NHL.
Yeah.
The fact that you're at 160, you can say, well, I rode a lot of buses in my day. I had a lot of hard trips in the snow through Saskatchewan. The NHL guys are going to look and be like, shit, we don't even take, we take a bus to the private airstrip that's flying us out.
Yeah.
It's 20 minutes, but they feed us while we're on there, and it's got Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what it's preparing you for. It's preparing you for a life that's softer. It's maybe preparing you better for the American Hockey League, but it's not preparing you better for the National.
You're right. Yeah.
College hockey was much more akin to the NHL than Canadian Major Junior is. So
Yeah. And I will say, on the last thing, look, just Google Michigan State hockey facilities. Holy cow. Coach, you got to go. It's 1:28. Thanks for doing this. And we'll talk
all right,
next
Ant.
time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.